Some of you are naturals. You use your hands a lot. You use your body a lot. Nonverbals are not that hard for you. For other people who tend to be more verbal and more direct, nonverbals are pretty hard. For example, my husband and I are very distinct. I am very nonverbal. So we can walk into a room and I could look around and I could tell him, oh, that person's upset and those two people are about to have an argument. And yeah, I can tell him all these things about all these people that I'm noticing. And he's like, what? But he goes around and talks to a few people and he comes back and I'm like, oh, all these emotional things, right? And he's like, oh, such and such and so. For example, we went to a church. We saw this family that had been in my class, Laura and Madison, and we came to the church one time, and my husband was casually talking to their dad, and he comes back and he's like, you know that they went down to college with your sister and they're good friends. Well, they've been in my class all semester, and I knew all these things about them, but I didn't know, like, details, just normal, average details, because I'm not a verbal person. I'm a, sloppy person. So today, I'm going to be mentioning different kinds, and I want you to kind of keep in your head, which one am I and which one is more natural to me? Because you can have a lot of miscommunication if you're one way and you're thinking the other person's the same way, but they're not. And so then a lot of problems can happen. I'm going to leave you right there because if we have time, we're going to do the same thing, but with verbals and no nonverbals, which would be just tragic for me. But you're going to try it. Not me. So the next one we're going to talk about, I took my computer away so that we could actually video for the people who aren't here. So much for my beautiful PowerPoint. No problem. The next one, if you are writing notes with a folder that you don't have, go back next week when you get it, is direct and indirect. Now, this one really does cause a lot of confusion, misunderstanding. So, I need Leo and Cannon. Come here. They're like, oh, cookie, yeah. Yes, how many points did you get? 8. How many points did you get? Woo! Okay, I just thought I'd mention that girls are typically more nonverbal than boys are. Yes. However, fear not, all of the points that you got, we're going to have a verbal order will go on each one of you. You will all get the points. So you got 15, you got 8. On to your stuff. All right, come here, Andrew. Andrew comes into class, and Andrew has this wonderful looking bag of cookies. Now, Cannon got class. Cannon loves Chips Ahoy cookies. Loves them so much. And he sees that Andrew has a bag of cookies. You would like a cookie. What do you say? That's good. Keep it fine. What would you randomly say to see Andrew with cookies? What would you like? Yeah. You just asked for one, right? Rachel. I don't know if you're a direct or indirect person, but girls tend to be more indirect. She sees Andrew has a thing of cookies. She loves Chips Ahoy. They're her favorite things in the whole entire world. But she's like, maybe he brought them for a party. Or maybe he's giving him to somebody else. Or maybe, if I ask for one, he'll be really mad at me and he'll never talk to me again, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. She does not want to ask him for a cookie. So what does she do? So Rachel might be inclined to say something like, oh, wow, you brought cookies. Oh, no, you're not supposed to say that. Yeah, that would actually be really nice. Indirect people really love it when there's people who are really like, you want one? And then they're like, yes, I do. Okay. So Rachel got her cookie without having to be direct. So you can give her a cookie. And he already asked first, so you can give him one too. Introducing nonverbal there. There we go. Okay, so he gets one because he asked for one. She gets one because she just smiled. Now, on video today, you can all watch the nonverbals of what just happened when one of them fell to the floor and the unexpected happened. Okay, so you can sit down with your cookie and be happy. Now, you were holding these for me. I bet you want one too. No? Okay, well, you don't have to have them. Fine. Just take my cookie. Okay, don't worry. The rest of you will get one if you want one. The difference is, so I'm an indirect person. So when I come in and somebody's holding cookies and I'm like, ooh, I really love some cookies, I don't want to ask for it. I'm coming up with all these reasons why they may have these cookies and not want to share them, or not want to share them with me. And so then if I ask for one outright, I'm going to be rude, I'm going to be offensive, I'm going to make them mad, I'm going to make them feel like they have to give me one, but then they're not going to be happy with me. Does this sound familiar to any of you? Are any of you like this? Okay, if any of you are like this and you're like, yeah, you are probably an indirect person. You don't like being direct because direct feels kind of rude. Direct people, they're just like, just say it. Just say whatever the thing is, just say it. So they come in, they see the cookie, and they're like, hey, can I have a cookie? I like cookies. Can I have a cookie? And the other person can say no, and they're okay. It doesn't hurt your relationship. Guys are mostly direct, which is why they can get together and they can say things that most of us girls are like, oh my goodness, I can't believe you said that. And they're all fine. Like, oh, slapping each other on the back. I think you're an idiot. Oh, dude, you know, and they're just joking and stuff, but we're all like, oh, I'm dying, you know. So, but the indirect ones are like, oh, what do I do? Because I really do want one, but I don't want to ask. So we come up with other things to say. For some of us, it's so natural. We're not even trying to be indirect. It's just, it would never cross our minds to be like, hey, can I have a cookie? I know that seems real simple, but it'd be like, ooh, you have cookies. I really love cookies. Those are my favorite cookies out of all. Did you bring those to share? Are you going to a party? Are you giving them to your girlfriend? Is there anything else I can say that's like, and I feel like I'm screaming, would you please give me a cookie? Whereas the poor guy who's direct is like, she didn't ask me for a cookie. This is, seriously, this will cause miscommunication in your marriage because you will very, very, very likely marry somebody who's opposite. You probably have a sibling who's opposite or a parent who's opposite. And so there are times when you feel like you were asking as direct as you possibly could, and they just didn't get it. And then you go home and you're like, they don't love me, they didn't give me any cookies. And we're like, you didn't ask for any cookies. Yes, I did. I told you 17 different ways that I wanted a cookie. You're like, why are you crying? Why didn't you just ask me for one? Go get one. Well, I don't want one now because you don't love me. And, you know, stuff like that. So someday, 10 years from now, when you're having this conversation in the van on the way home from church, be like, this is thick mental. This won't stop it from happening, but at least you'll understand what's going on. So that's the difference between direct and indirect. Direct people just say it. Now, sometimes indirect people think that direct people are rude. Example being the South and the North. I don't know if you've ever traveled extensively. Southerners tend to be more indirect. Well, bless your heart. You idiot. Watch for deer. Be careful on your way home. Our cornbread's not cooked in the middle. That girl's got problems. We tend to be a little more indirect. So, honey, you want some sweet tea? Now, of course, you're going to want ice in that. You're like, I don't want any ice in that. You just want some ice in that. Everybody wants some ice in that. Everybody down here wants, don't you want ice in that? What's the matter with you? We don't say that, of course. But we go home saying that. Like, oh, they just want ice in that. I got in trouble once. I offended someone when I worked at Six Flags over Georgia when I was about 16. And I worked in the 50s diner. And it was a very hot day. So in my thinking, being a Southerner, everybody wanted as much ice as possible because they were very hot. I did not know that up north, a lot of people don't drink ice in their drinks at all. And so I scoop in ice all the way up to the top on this very expensive drink that came with a very expensive meal. And this man, he blessed me out. He was just like, you're trying to cheat me by filling it up and I don't get enough drink and yada, yada. And honest to goodness, I just looked at him as confused as I could be because I did not have any idea what he was talking about. But when I did move up north and I got to know people up there, I understood. And it was like, that's what he was doing. So I made him mad by trying to be nice to him. Communication. He was being very direct. And I was being indirect because I was just like, I don't remember if I said anything or if I stumped some of his ice out, but I was just like, oh, damn. But the funny thing is years later, we lived up north for a while, and I got used to it, and we moved back down, and I visited my sister, who was also Southern, and I went to set the table for something, and I asked everybody if they want ice in their drink. And she was like, oh, you're a Yankee now, aren't you? And she was just joking, but I thought it was really funny that me even asking meant that I wasn't Southern anymore or something like that. So direct and indirect people have to learn how to communicate with each other without hurting each other's feelings. That is often why guys should get together with other guys sometimes and girls should get together with other girls sometimes. But if you are one of the few who's different, if you're a girl and you tend to be direct, you might find yourself feeling like you stand out or like people don't understand you as much and you'd rather go hang out with the guys because they don't get offended at everything you say. So it's good to know who you are so that you understand some of your challenges. Okay, moving on. What's next? What's next on your list, Hallie? Talk to think or think to talk. I'm going to send y'all a couple of videos later to watch at home on these two different things. We don't have time and our stuff isn't working. Talking to think and thinking to talk is another one that's typically a guy and girl thing, but some people need to think and they want to make sure they know what they're going to say before they say it. Now that may seem normal. Typically direct people like to do this because they want to know what they're going to say before they say it. Talk to think people are people who don't know what they want to say and they're still saying it. So you're actually talking to try and figure out what you want to say or how you feel. So for an example would be, here is a guy who is sad and a girl who is sad. And they're communicating non-verbally that they are sad. They are frowning. Like Will is sad. Not really, he's just bored. Or whatever you are, just neutral. He's neutral. Will is neutral. Okay, not assuming. So they're sitting there sad. And I come up and I say, oh my goodness, you two look sad. What's wrong? Now the guy or the think to talk person may kind of think, I'm sad. Why am I sad? And so then he thinks about it. I'm sad. Does this thing happen? It's and he wants to get to the point so he can tell me exactly why he is sad. But he needs to think about it first. So he's quiet. Now I may think he's ignoring me. He didn't hear my question. He's rude. I don't know. I'm guessing because I'm assuming because that's what we do. But okay, he's thinking. She starts talking. I went to school today and the teacher, she told me that I did a bad job, and I tried to explain to her I didn't do a bad job. It's just that there was this duck in the road, and my mom slammed on the brakes, and that's why my Kool-Aid fell on my homework, and that's why it was all gross. And she said that I did a sloppy job, and I didn't do a sloppy job, and so I just feel like she should have asked me and let me explain it instead of just telling me that. Okay, so at the end, she basically said the teacher misunderstood, and I wish she would give me a chance to explain. That would have been the direct answer. But she couldn't have told you that at the beginning. She didn't know. She was just really sad because it all went wrong. And so talking through it was her way of coming to the conclusion so she understood what she could communicate. Whereas the whole time the guy might have been sitting there completely ignoring her because he's trying to figure things out. And he got to the end and he was like, I lost the game at recess today. Bummer. Okay. So he needed to think first. He wanted to get to the conclusion to tell you the conclusion to answer your question. For her, the question was an opportunity to express how she felt, and she talked through it and got herself to the point where she understood. So if you know someone who talks to think, you ask them a question, be very prepared that the first words out of their mouth are not an answer to your question. There have been times when I'm talking to my husband and I get about 5 or 6 sentences done, and I'm like, what did you have to be? Because it was just like, let me share. Whereas for him, sometimes it's just like, and I think he's ignoring me when he's actually thinking that he wants to say the right thing. So motivation is different. Now, before you think the other side are idiots, which is what a lot of people do, and that's where miscommunication comes from, assume the best. Often, if you can ask them and you can communicate together, you can find out why they do their different things. Often, a think to talk person wants to give you the right answer. They want to say what is true, and they don't want to say anything that's not true. So they're thinking first so they can say the very best thing. Whereas the talk to think person wants to connect with you. So it's not really about the answer to the question. And that can cause problems because, like, for example, my husband, who is direct and a thinker, might say, well, why did you leave that on the counter? And I might come up with all these reasons why he's asking me this. Oh, he's mad that I left this on the counter. He thinks I shouldn't have left this on the counter. And oh, yeah, I left it last week on the counter. Why can't I leave it on the counter? The problem is it's sin. It's not sin to leave it on the counter. So now I'm upset before I even talk, and I give this whole long reasoning to why this is on the counter. And finally, he's like, I don't have a problem with being on the counter. I was just wondering why it was on the counter. I was wondering if it was for me. So I like created a whole argument in my head, and now I'm upset with him, and it had nothing to do with him. It just had to do with all the things that were already in my head. So assume there's stuff you don't know. The old woman, the young woman, if you're talking to someone who's different than you, just assume there's stuff you don't know. And sometimes you need to ask more questions. We just got to grow. You're going to learn skills. It's okay. It's going to be fine. All right. That's the last on there, but that's not the last of what we're going to talk about. Ooh, I got 1 minute. I do want to mention two different things that do affect communication a lot. One is literal. No, 1 more minute. I got 1 more minute. Just give me 1 more minute. Literal versus figurative language. People who are literal are going to take things literally. So if you say, I put my foot in my mouth, they're going to go, gross. And that may seem stupid because, of course, everybody knows. But, for example, something like, oh, dear. Does that mean you just dropped your cookie? Does that mean you just saw a deer? Does that mean you just saw the person you're in love with? Like, what are we talking about here? Figurative language is stuff that doesn't mean what it actually means. It means something else. And we do this in our cultures. So there are things called colloquialisms, which is a wonderful big long word. So, for example, for elevator, don't go all the way to the top. We aren't talking about this person who owns a building and their elevator's broken. It means that they're not as smart as, they're one fry short of a half meal, that sort of thing. You can look up colloquialisms. I don't need to give you any more. Okay, the chicken sounded. It's time to stop and give you the easy peasy tip for the day, which means you need your folder, you need your papers, you need to write this down. Whew. And I'm going to try and do it really quick so that we have a couple minutes to finish our game. Your tip for today, which, by the way, how many of you tried the repeat 3 words from last week? Next week, first thing, I want to hear how that went. I really want to know. So be prepared to talk about it. Communicate. Good. This week, just remember that statistics say that 80%, write down 80% nonverbal. Statistics say that 80% of our communication is nonverbal, which means, yes, you need to be careful of the words you're saying, but just as much, you need to be careful how you're saying. The building is on fire. So if your teacher asks you who did your homework and you didn't, it's probably not a good idea to be like, not today. You might want to, say it a little differently. I brought Hope, who's in this class anyway, but I asked her if she would come up. Do you remember this? Hope got a job at Chick-fil-A. Now, probably you know Chick-fil-A is one of the friendliest, happiest, sunshine and rainbows places. People love to go there. And one of the reasons that they love to go there is because it has a nice, positive atmosphere, right? You might go to some other fast food restaurants and they're like, what you want? Yeah, we ain't got that. We ain't got that either. We got that either. Sorry. I've literally gone up to a drive-thru before and they're like, we aren't taking orders right now. Sorry for the inconvenience. Or like, you go to a chicken place. We don't have any chicken. Oh, okay. Can I get a burger? No, we don't have those either. But you go to Chick-fil-A and they're like, do you know what? We don't have this much sauce. How about we just give you $100? They're just pouring over you, and it's just a nice, pleasant place. Well, one of the reasons it's a nice, pleasant place is not because every person they hire is super friendly and wonderful. It's because of skills, nonverbal skills, actually. So, Hope, being very prepared for this moment, was taught 4 things. They're all nonverbal, as in no, not words, but nonverbal communication that communicate this pleasant atmosphere. And they were so good, I wanted you to hear them. Come on. Little Chick-fil-A lesson from Hope. The first one is you create eye contact. So as soon as someone comes in the door, you create eye contact with them if possible. And then the second one is make a personal connection or share a smile. So you're going to look in the eye and you say, hello, welcome to Chick-fil-A, and you smile at them. The last one is speak with a happy tone. So you also want to make sure that your tone sounds happy so they feel happy. So when someone walks in, you hear at least 5 different people saying, hello, welcome in. We sound like a bunch of parrots. And the reason we do this is because then they feel welcomed and they feel happy. And so when they come up to order, they aren't already mad at us. Very good. So those are like lessons. Those are actual skills that you can learn. So somebody can get a job at Chick-fil-A and be an extremely shy person, but be very successful, not because they suddenly turn out going when they put the uniform on, but because they learn core skills of things that they need to do. So it's a good reminder, looking someone in the eye, smiling, using a friendly tone, and addressing someone when they come in the room is a good thing to do. So again, next time you go to some restaurant, some fast food restaurant especially, you walk in and everybody's not looking at you because they hope they go to some other register because they're busy on their phone or something. Or they're like, hey, thanks for coming, we're glad you're here, whatever. Notice the difference. It's different and it makes a difference as to where you want to be. Well, it's the same way in real life. You want to be around places where you feel wanted and you aren't like, ooh, everybody's mad that I'm here. All right. We have 5 minutes. Your homework. Flip your paper over. This is mostly you figuring yourself out. You can do more research on these different kinds if you want. I'm going to send you the videos, the links, and some more information. And I want you to kind of think through who you think you are. And then you're going to ask 2 other people, preferably your family. It'd be a good idea to ask your parents because I bet they're going to be totally opposite on some of these. And it's going to bring up some fun memories. Maybe some not fun memories. So if I got the problem, sorry. Come back next week and tell us about it. So I want you to learn about the people around you and be aware, because if you find out one of your parents are completely opposite from you, that might explain a couple things. And it might help you to know next time how to communicate with them when they say that you do your chores. They actually want to know if you did your chores. They don't really want to know the whole history of everything. All right. So we have 5 minutes left. Do your homework. Bring it back next week. Bring back the folder and everything. You will get points, etc. And next week we'll have a homework chair up here, and you can just bring it, and when you come, just put it down. All right? Back to our teams. Yes, Grace? It's when I get out of piano, like 2 minutes after the start. Okay. Well, I won't send any hate notes to your piano teacher or anything like that. I understand. Thank you for communicating that with me, because if not, I would think that Grace was one of those people who just showed up late for everything. So, bravo. Okay. We're still in our teams, yes? You are correct on your side. So Maddie is going to come back up here and do points. You are going to get more points. And we'll just start with where you are, and you can spread out as need be. So this time, once you get up here and once you find your little bed, it says sleep, you must put your hands behind your back, and you must not use them. So you just use words. When I go to bed at night, I go to, thank you. Okay, this team got it. All right, so let's go. Go, Grace, start. And Rebecca, start. Go.